Hello everybody. We are here in our episode number 2 of this particular show, which is Start an Online Business Show. Thank you very much for being listening and watching to this video if you are in YouTube, because we have a lot to say and we are trying to give you all the information that you need to get started without having to pay a cent. So just follow us and just keep an eye on what we have for you going forward. So first of all, what we're going to be talking about here today is the top 3 things that you need to know about websites. There are always certain things that you need to know before you get started, and not just before you get started, but even while you are working on your website and stuff like this, you need to know what to do. So there are 3 things that you definitely need to know before you get started, or even if you've already started. It's very important for you to know these 3 things and probably understand them a little bit better and probably get onto them in a later stage. So these 3 things are basically domain names, hosting companies or hosting services, and how to choose the right service. I had an issue just recently with my website, the 3stepsbusiness.com, and another website that I have, which is beforetraveling.com. I had them in separate hosting companies, and what was going on is that with the 3 Steps Business, I had it like as a part of another umbrella of another website, and Before Traveling, it was actually in a standalone server, and both ways I had issues. So I've tried absolutely all the possibilities to have the best hosting and to buying domains and all these kind of things. So all I want to do here today is to share that experience with you. I'll share with you the best options that you have when you're talking about domain names, hosting companies, and choosing the right service. So let's start from the beginning. So number 1, domain name. What is a domain name? So the domain name is easy. Is a name that is going to be covering your ugly address, which is actually the server address. What happens is that the server is got something that is called an IP address. So for someone who is not really technical, an IP address is basically a number which is where the internet goes into your house, for example. So in that case, this is not the house, but it's a server that is hosted somewhere by a company. So the server basically is where your website will live, and we'll go talking about servers later on. But basically the domain name is a real estate, which is a name that is gonna be replacing that IP address, that all those ugly numbers that normally people don't remember. And trust me, they're not gonna remember 101.89.310.29. okay, but they will remember, for example, 3stepsbusiness.com, and they will remember yoursite.com. So always make sure that this domain name is actually something that defines your website. This is very, very, very important. So now that you know what a domain is, how to pick a domain name is critical, because what you want to do is that domain name represents your website, and establish a good name for what you have to share with the world. Okay, so remember, domain names are global. Even though if you buy, for example, here in Australia, if you buy .com.au or .se in Switzerland, or somewhere else in Sweden, or somewhere else, or .co in Colombia, where I am from. So it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, websites are global, and you can access them from wherever you are. Okay, so remember, this needs to establish your name. So there's something that is very important as well, which is when you buy a domain name, is to have in mind a good domain name. This means something that people will remember, okay? And the extension is very important, okay? So a good domain name means name plus extension. The extension, you want it to be .com. A lot of the times, people buy .com.au or .com.se or .se or something like that. But what you're doing when you do it that way is limiting yourself and limiting your business only for that particular country. You're doing a local sort of way. If you want to expand yourself and you want to sell online courses, which is what we basically do here in the 3 Steps Business, we teach people how to create a business and create online courses on about their knowledge, experience, talents, and skills. So what you want to do is you want to use the .com instead of .com.au or .com. Something else, simply because that will give you a global reach, and people wouldn't feel like, oh, okay, but you're in Australia, how can I buy your course, or you are in Sweden, or you are somewhere else. Okay, so don't limit yourself to just your local market, because that's the beauty of the internet, which is what we spoke in a previous video, in the previous episode, which is basically about the whole perfect storm and how it's that all happening. So make sure you pick a good domain, which is basically representing yourself, and buy the straight away if you find the .com and that domain that you want. Don't think about it, because you know what, next time you go back, that domain doesn't exist anymore, someone else has got it, and you probably could buy it from them, but at the end of the day, it's cheaper if you buy it first. Remember, the first one is always the first, the second one is just the second one. So remember, it's always the first one, as a good friend of mine used to say. So the first one is the first one, the second one is the first loser. So just make sure you keep it, in that way. So if you have a good domain name in mind, and buy the straight away and the extension to be .com if possible. Also, this is very important. You see all these cute names, very funny cute names, and this sort of thing. So a lot of the times people will remember those kind of things, but at the same time, if you want to do serious businesses, people probably don't relate as much to a cute domain name instead of talking something a little bit more serious. Okay, so you want to create what you want to create most of the times, or all the time on the internet, is trust. Okay, so you're trying to get that trust to somebody across your screen. Okay, so try to be as trustworthy as possible. Okay, so just keep it serious in a business manner, and if you're doing some self-help development or these kind of things, so just try to keep it in a way that you're helping people and people will trust you on or from your domain only. Okay, also think of a unique domain name. Make sure that your online business is known for what it is. Okay, the people will remember that domain name that you are selecting. Also, try to make it as short as possible, and make sure, if you can, that it includes your unique value proposition. If you're not sure of what unique value proposition is, we'll be talking about this particular topic in a later episode. But all I want to say is that unique value proposition is that makes yourself different from others, and that's what you want to reflect across the whole website, not only from your domain, but that goes across all your inner pages and all those kind of things. So there's some information about the unique value proposition on our website and the 3stepsbusiness.com if you are interested of reading about it, and there's a very cool infographic in there that is going to explain you everything about it as well. Also, make sure that when you get it, just get it from a good service, from a very good company that is gonna give you the service that you need in terms of the domain name. So where to get a domain name? There are many places. There's HostGator and Bluehost and all these kind of places. So the one I recommend is the one I use for buying domains only. I use 2 different services for domains and hosting, and we'll go into the hosting after this. And what I use is Namecheap. 2 reasons. First one is cheap, as the name states, is Namecheap. So they are cheap. They give you a free private domain, which is basically covering your privacy. This is very important as well when you buy a domain. Make sure you buy your private domain, because what they do is once you buy a domain and you put all your details in there, that's gonna be public. So it's gonna be your number, your phone number, your email address, all these kind of things. They are public, and they will be able to see who owns that domain, and that will be you. And it's gonna have your home address, your phone number, your email address, and absolutely everything disclosed to for everybody. So make sure you buy this domain privacy when you buy a domain, and that's why Namecheap is so good, because they give it for free for the first year once you buy the domain. So every domain I've bought from Namecheap is actually costing me about $11-12, including all the services that they have, and they also include forwarding your email addresses into whatever service that you want. It could be a Gmail or other services, and that's included all for free. So make sure you check them out. Namecheap. All the links to these services that I'm going to be talking about are going to be in the show notes, which are 3stepsbusiness.com/2, and you will be able to find all that information over there once if you're interested in knowing more about these services. Okay, also, now you have a domain. Let's say you already have a domain, you have a unique value proposition that you want to share with the world, and you're ready to go and get everything set up. So now what? Now our second point, which is the web hosting. In the web hosting, all you want to know is that the web hosting is where your website is going to live. As I was saying before, so the domain name is the address, is the name that is going to cover that ugly address, which is basically your server, which is your web hosting. So if you think about it, the domain name is the address, and the web hosting is the house. Okay, so the house of your website, this is where your website is going to live. All your databases, absolutely everything that is going to hold that website, this is the infrastructure of your website. So this is very critical to know about. So your web hosting, the things that you need to consider when you're going to buy a web hosting and when you're going to purchase this service is basically the space. So know how much space this website, any web hosting company is going to give you. This is very important. A lot of the times they give you few gigs for space on your website. This is especially important if you're using a lot of videos and a lot of images. But for video, I suggest you go with a different service, and we'll talk about later on about that. But what you can do here is you need a relatively good space. I would say, in my experience, probably 2 gigs space for a normal WordPress website. That's more than enough, unless you want to host multiple websites in the same hosting company. It's okay, but a lot of the times 2 gigs is more than enough. They sometimes offer you like 500 gigs or so, but at the end of the day, you don't need it, and you don't need it at all. And a lot of the times what they do is they offer you a lot of space, so that seems like, oh, I'm getting tons of value out of my money. But what happens, they give you a lot of space, but the service is not good. That happened to me very, very often, and it happens to me many, many times. And that's why I've swapped services so often, because I was trying to get the right service and to be able to share this information with you guys who are listening to this podcast or watching to this video. And so make sure the space is important, but you don't want too much space, because as I said before, it could be just hype marketing from those companies trying to say they have more value for you. Also, things to consider: the service. This is imperative. This is the most important thing that you need to care about when you're buying a hosting service, because I'm not a highly technical person. I've learned a lot, and I would say I'm a highly proficient person on what the technical side is, but I'm not a web developer. I'm not a coder or anything like that. I sort of match some keyboards and stuff, but I just like things to work. Okay, so this is why this is very, very important, the service, because you want somebody who back you up. If you don't have a developer, or if you don't have somewhere to go for support, you probably want your web hosting company to be able to solve your problems very, very quickly, or at least you want to be able to ask questions when you have some doubts. You probably don't have a friend that is a web developer. You probably are just a lone rider on this journey of online entrepreneurship. So make sure you have a web hosting that is going to support you over time, because as I told you, this is the infrastructure where your website is going to live. If this is not working, you don't have a website working. So this is very important, the service. Also, make sure that when your pages uploads, they look the same in all the different browsers. And this is part of the web hosting a lot of the times, because depends of the technology they are using, their websites are going to load faster, are going to load better, and they are going to load exactly the same in all the different browsers. It's very important to check, for example, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Google Chrome, Safari. Those are the main 4 web browsers, I would say. And I normally check all of them once I create a website. So and this is, as I said before, this a lot of the times given by the web hosting company. So make sure that this happens, and they offer extra services, like for example, a faster load page for your particular website. That's very important. That also helps you for ranking into SEO and a better experience for your customer. So there are different types of web hosting. So far we've said that your hosting is basically where your website is going to live, and all the different things that you need to consider, which is the service and the space for your particular website, and also that it looks the same and they have good service around that. So free hosting, this is one of the types of web hosting. Personally, I don't recommend free hosting, simply because all they do is they put advertising on it, so they don't charge you, but they make money out of advertising. Nothing is free in life. Just think about it that way. So make sure that you pick the right hosting service for your website. And the free hosting, in my opinion, if you're serious about this, or you're serious about creating a business, you don't want to go the free way, because going the free way is basically just gonna be annoying your customer at the end of the day. So you want to be professional, and you want to have a better hosting account to offer to your customers. So remember, this is going to be your online hub, and where people are going to know about you, and you want to be trustworthy and not just full of advertising. Also, the website, a lot of the times they are down because they don't have priority. Of course, web hosting companies are going to give priority to people who pay, not to the people who are using the free service. This service, the shared hosting, which is our next hosting service. So basically the way it works is one server, and they break it down into different chunks, let's call it like that. And what they do is they sell you that particular chunk of hosting, and they charge you for it. So basically you're renting an apartment within that server. So if you think as a server as a building, you're going to have one room in that particular server. Also, you're going to be sharing this with different website owners, and this minimizes the monthly bill, so it's cheaper. A lot of the times they are slow, but a lot of the times with some services they're actually very, very quick, and they are optimized to be better than other share hosting, which is the share hosting company or service that I recommend. At the end of this section, you will see what I'm talking about. Also, one of the problems with shared hosting is that, for example, one of the rooms get infected with a malware with a virus. The problem is because if they're in the same server, in the same building, a lot of the times it actually propagates and is gonna be affecting your website. So you need to be very careful when you pick your hosting company. If it is a shared hosting, make sure that they are isolated, because this could be affecting your website. So just think like if you're in a business and somebody's having a party, and your apartment is not isolated, so you're gonna get all the noise coming off those particular apartments. So make sure you have a good understanding of how the share hosting works and how they isolate them. Now, the next one is a dedicated hosting. So the dedicated hosting is for you only, as the name states. So it's dedicated for yourself. What are the problems with dedicated hosting is that there's a little bit more maintenance to what you have to do to this particular hosting. So a lot of the times you will have to maintain it yourself, and a lot of the times you will have to probably hire a developer, or you probably want to hire a developer to be able to maintain it. But the good thing is that the speed is better because the server is not shared, so all the resources are for yourself, and all these particular services for yourself. But a lot of the times you don't need all these services unless your website is is dragging a lot of resources out of the CPU and out of the server itself, because the server is a computer. So unless you need lots of power for your service, you wouldn't need this particular dedicated hosting account. So the next type is a collocated hosting. So basically this is, you buy a server. Let's put it this way: you buy a server, you put it in your house, and you're responsible for it. This is absolutely just renting a room now. It's renting the whole building without having anybody to maintain it for you. So you will have to hire a developer, or if you are a developer, you probably want to just you will have to maintain it yourself. A lot of the times they'll sell you the maintenance, but the maintenance is very expensive because of course they're going to be looking after your building and not just only part of the building. That's why the shared hosting is always cheaper. Okay, so the recommended hosting company, in my opinion, a part of Bluehost, HostGator, and all these other companies, the best company that I've been with so far is SiteGround. They're an awesome company. These guys, they're really good, and they're really, really, really good. The service that they offer is amazing. Look, just my personal experience. I opened an account on a Tuesday. They called on a Tuesday morning. They called me in the Tuesday afternoon asking me if everything was okay, if I needed some help with my website. They called me to my phone. I'm in Australia, and they are based in Europe, and they called me and asked me, how is everything? We checked, and we know that you just opened an account, and we just wanted to know if you need any help. How amazing is that? You don't find that anywhere else. Also, their online chat, which is a live chat with the support people, is amazing, and the support is amazing, and that's what you want. And also the service is also great because they offer you extra things. So they speed up your website, they also check the malware, and they are isolated, as I was saying before. So your website, even though it's a shared hosting, I use shared hosting, even though it's shared, it's actually isolated from your neighbor. So if something happens to one of them, it's not going to affect your website in that sense. So make sure you check them out. The link is in our show notes again. So it's that's 3stepsbusiness.com/2. You will be able to find about them and what they do, because these guys are very, very good at what they do. Okay, so the third step. So far we've been talking about domains and hosting, and the third is finding the right service for yourself. Okay, so it's three things that you need to know about websites. It's about your domain name, your hosting, and finding the right service for yourself, for your business. First of all, as our first step on our process on the 3 steps business is planning. Plan your desired website. Plan what you want to do, so you will know this. You know your domain, the domain that you need to buy. You will know the hosting that you want to buy, and also you will know the right service to pick and to select when you are going that way. So also always plan what you're gonna do. That's the main thing. So choose the right web hosting company. This is very important. So it must be reliable. It must be of a good reputation. Also ask that you can upload videos, pictures, and this all depends on the bandwidth that they give you. And as well as the bandwidth is basically how much traffic can you get into your website, and also the amount of hosting that they are giving you. Ask for the uptime guarantee. Most of web hosting companies, they claim that they have 99.9% of uptime guarantee. This doesn't happen a lot of the times. It has happened to me that my website's been down for a week or 2 or 3 days or every day in the evening. And that's why when I changed to SiteGround, everything changed in that sense. So make sure you ask for this uptime guarantee and for service. Service is very, very important. So also ask about the bandwidth, what I was mentioning before. So can the storage get the data and application and users to get to use this service a lot faster? So always think of your user experience. When you go to a website, you want it to load fast. You want to be able to just browse things very, very quickly. Otherwise, you'd probably just bounce and just go somewhere else. Also, you can buy a small bandwidth for a start, and then you can upgrade. So a lot of the times what they do is that they offer different packages, and that's what is great about all these services, because you can buy just the package that you need at the beginning, and then you can upgrade if you need to as you go, so you don't have to spend a lot of money up front. So there you go, 3 things that you need to care about when you are starting your online business and you need to know about websites. So it's first, domain names. So again, the domain name is basically that address that covers the ugly number, and people will remember you, and that's what they're gonna use in their browsers to find you. So make sure you use your unique value proposition and you are saying something that is relevant for you or your business. Number 2, hosting companies. Make sure that they offer a good service, that their uptime guarantee is very, very good and is real. Also, the things to care about: the space, the bandwidth, and the type of service that you're gonna pick according to what you have to do. And number 3, choosing the right service. So always plan your website, check the bandwidth, check the storage, and that's gonna give you about everything that you have to go about buying domain names, about hosting companies, and all these kind of things. So as I said, all the recommended services are on our show notes, where you can find in the 3stepsbusiness.com/2. So thank you very much for listening, and of course remember always to subscribe to this show, because it's going to be running twice a week, and you're going to be having a lot of information, actionable information for you to go and create your online business, because this is all what we care about. So to help you to create your online business. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you in our next show.